Hello Malaysia, hello world. Apa khabar? Apa khabar? Welcome to our ECM talk with topic for today, 2021. How do we embrace the new normal? I'm Rajesh Shahrul, your host. Year 2020 will be remembered for a very long time in Malaysia's short history. It will be a year that will be written about, taught in schools, and become part of our history. It is the year where Malaysia, as a sovereign nation, experienced for the first time an international pandemic that started when a virus was unleashed in China in late 2019. The government has enacted a pandemic law for our rakyat in the new normal. So the question now is, what has the country resolved and defined as its first order of business for 2021 in the new normal? For the rest of us rakyat, we should ask ourselves this very important and soul-searching question on how to adapt to the new normal at a very personal and spiritual level. I will not say more. Let us hear from the expert himself. I have here with me Dr. Jimmy Chia, Faculty Dean of a private institution here in Selangor. Welcome back to our program, Jimmy. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. As you can see, I'm working from home. So, good morning, everyone. I'm back again.
Good. Terima kasih for being supportive of our channel program.
Thank you for inviting me again and again. I kind of enjoy this platform. I can't wait for my next invitation again. Maybe we should make it regular.
Yes, you'll be seeing a lot of us. Okay, Jimmy, please let me begin with my first question. In your view, what are we learning from these COVID-19 disruptions and what needs to be different than before?
I think the first thing that we have learned in this COVID is that number one, we are not in control. Broadly speaking, in life, we're not in control about life and death, and suddenly, all of a sudden, death seems so near to us. All of a sudden, we seem so vulnerable, and it's not just the sick one that got COVID, even the healthy one, so that's number one, okay? And we're not in control about our career. Those who have worked hard in the past, I've got friends who worked 10 years in a company and overnight, just because of COVID, the person lost the job. So this job security, the career that you plan for, all these things, it seems that we're not in control anymore. And also about people, I heard management, managerial level, they complained about people taking advantage of the company because of this issue and whatnot. You are not in control of people's actions. We can't even control a person's wearing masks, even though it's being announced again and again, and there are people who are willing to sacrifice the 1,000 ringgit over a mask. It's difficult to imagine. That's the first thing that we have learned. We're not in control. The second thing that I've learned, or most of us have learned, is that we are not prepared. We are not prepared. We could be ready, I think that the problem over here is we are not prepared. Our process is not prepared. The process itself is not robust enough to handle extenuating circumstances like this. If you look back at MCO, the first MCO, where the government talked about new normals and all, many have been asking, so what is the new normal? Many actually struggle finding the alternative to get ways done, to get things done. Surprisingly, there are people who, because they don't know what the new normal is about, instead of making a decision on an alternative, they just postpone the decisions. And once MCO is lifted, everything goes back to the old way. And that is not new normal. That is, I don't think it should be done this way.
Right. But Jimmy, why do you think it is so difficult for us to adapt to this new change in our life? I mean, at the end of the day, it's us, our life that we are talking about.
Well, if you ask me, I think it's human nature. Number one, we resist changes. Most people are. So I was just receiving a WhatsApp a message last week, and it says 98% of the world population live in a comfort zone. low risk taker. We don't welcome excitement, or we don't welcome changes, whether in career or in life. And only 2% of people really go about embracing the changes because it's the new level. It's the only way to improvements. No, to improve the fundamental level, to improve, you must change. You can't be improving without changing. It's not possible. Okay, but then again, we are battling against our old self, our comfort zone, the old way of doing, which is established and it works already. If things is working, why should we change? You ask about what are things that should be done differently, what are the changes needed and all. So I think there's two things. Number one is with regards to processes or systems. Talking about in the past, people clock in, clock out. You have to have a machine. You have to go there physically to clock in. You don't have to do it anymore. There are apps that can help people to do that. Take Microsoft Teams, for example. You can clock in and clock out wherever you are. You can work from home and yet still be productive. You don't have to resort to paper submissions. Can we think about online submission? Can we think about paperless? This, I believe, is the best opportunity to contribute, to do something back to the world. Can we do something to the environment to make it paperless, at the same time make it more efficient? If you think about online submissions, if you think about paperless, we are cutting off lead time. As much as it's going to bring a lot of hassle because you have to change a lot of things, it's eventually going to be better for yourself. But the second thing that needs to change, I suppose this is the biggest hurdle, is the change in expectations. You can't change the process without changing expectation. You can't expect people to work from home and yet clock in and be seen physically in wherever your workplace is. It's just not happening. Okay. So I suppose that the expectation is the biggest things that most companies are struggling. Okay. So besides processes, I suppose that the next thing to talk about is the KPI. Not being there physically at work doesn't mean that it's not working. Instead of measuring people's output by their physical appearance, maybe we should change and look more into the efficiency on the output itself. Now, bear in mind, people behave the way you measure them. And now that we are in COVID, and I really don't know, even with the new vaccines, how long is this battle going to continue? And we're not even sure whether when COVID is over, whether or not we have a new challenge. But the question is, have we learned anything from this? We may not be ready, but can we get ourselves prepared for the next pandemic? Otherwise, we will really look very silly that we have not learned anything. The worst thing in this changes is that when we have implemented a lot of changes and all, but we adopted a wrong measurements on our colleagues, on our employee. You really don't want to go about measuring a white collar person with a blue collar KPI. That's not working. It's not good for the umbrella company. Sorry, my connection is not quite stable for the last few seconds.
Okay. You're better now. Yes. Because I suppose, Jimmy, at the end of the day, it's about trust on both sides, isn't it? It's about the trust on both sides when you go into this new normal so-called communication, isn't it?
Correct. And I mentioned about people. Remember, I said we're not in control of people. When I attended meeting, some of my colleagues and people that talked about how difficult it is to handle their staff, their subordinates. And I think that has a lot to do with trust.
Precisely.
No doubt there will be people, there will be black sheeps, there'll be people, doesn't matter how well you take care of it, doesn't matter how well it's being educated, they would still want to find shortcuts and take advantage of the company and all. But I think the underlying question is, do you trust that they will do the good job?
In
the past, if the compliance comes because of enforcement and because of so much things, because I'm there, that's why you do it. Really, it tells so much of whether you're having the right people in your company or not.
Right.
You know, if you need to be there 24/7 just to make sure that the person is doing the right thing, then the integrity is not there. Okay.
Exactly.
Maybe it means that it's the wrong person to start with. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah.
Here, Jimmy. Here.
So I think instead of so the pandemic, I think it's a wake up call. Really, from the positive side, it shows us whether or not we have the right person. It shows us the real problem in between people. Okay, and a company can't move forward without trust. It's just not possible.
Very good. Well said, Jimmy. Well said. Okay, moving on to my next question. Speaking about education, what does this possibility mean for the future of education?
I'm going to talk about student learning experience. Okay?
Yes.
With or without COVID, education, it's all about learning. Okay, and our biggest stakeholder is students. Okay.
Yep.
But moving forward, instead of having physical classroom, we may have virtual classroom. You may see a lot more virtual classroom than physical classroom. Moving forward, instead of having a live lecture where students attend classes together with their peers, and they may have pre-recorded lectures because of connections issue and all. There's nothing wrong to have a live session. There's nothing wrong. It's just that some country, and not every individuals have the are accessible to that to the live lectures. So pre-recording may be here for a long time to stay. And what is the biggest difference over here? And I think personally, the biggest difference is instead of hearing it, learning it from a person, there will be a lot of self-learning in this in our future educations. I remember as a student, a module in general in UK, it's about 2 hours of contact. Okay, The same module, when we put it here because of our credit hour calculation and whatnot, we define it as 4 hours of contact. Okay, Same curriculum. Okay, but the only difference is that over here we double the contact hour with students.
Correct.
That's what happened in the past when we can still have our physical meetup and physical classroom. Now this pandemic, the positive outcome of this pandemic that is brought about is maybe it encouraged more self-learning than before. Now, it's no longer me feeding you with a lot of information. So I did everything, I put it there, you go and feed yourself.
Correct.
You decide what is best for you. You
Correct.
decide how much time you want to spend.
Right. Yes.
So I think that's number one. Okay, so that's on the learning part. Number two, it's the campus experience. So what makes a university different than a college, I suppose, is the entire campus experience, not just the facilities, but the whole experience, student activities and whatnot. Okay, and it's just like shopping, comparing online shopping and window shopping. There are people who still prefer going to the mall, seeing people, having able to touch things, not having to buy anything. It's okay, but the experience itself, But the world is moving towards online shopping. It may be a different experience, but the world is moving towards that. Okay,
Right.
So I believe campus will continue to stay, but we may be moving towards virtual campus, and we must move towards virtual campus. Otherwise, we're not learning anything. Otherwise, we're not getting ourselves ready for the next wave. It could be COVID, it could be something else. We don't know.
Right. So So basically, what you're saying, Jimmy, is the learning in the new normal. This is how educators would see from their perspective and practices in teaching, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. Definitely.
And
so talking about practices now, so in the past, I think the focus has always been on getting the slides ready, the PPT, and getting the notes ready and send it over. But the challenge that we educators have over here is not just about getting the information right, it's also about the skill set. There are people who can speak naturally in front of the camera, just like you, but not everybody has that. Yeah. So and that this is something that the educators has to focus about. Upgrading the skill sets, making sure that the pre-recording video or lectures is of certain qualities. Maybe do some video editing and have captions to make learning interactive. That's what we have to do. Okay. But there are other things that we educators focus about, which is on assessments. It's a lot easier, I dare say it's a lot easier to have a sit-in exam, have exams conducted at the university. It's a lot easier. So in the past, the focus has been on maybe plagiarisms, maybe whether or not there's any student attempting to cheat from the exams, having invigilators in place and all this, and this, like I say, it's compliance under monitoring, it's compliance with enforcement. Unfortunately, I'm there to see, have CCTV and make sure that you behave the right things. But because of this COVID and because everybody is going for open book exam, how do you ensure that people don't cheat? Chances are they're going to refer. Yes, they can. So let's make it open. It's a free platform. Everybody can look at resources. So instead of asking questions that requires the memory, that requires A equivalent to A, 2 plus 2 equal to 3, can we think of something that better assess students, that better assess them on their understanding, on their synthesis thinking, or maybe on their applications? In the real world, when we come out to work, your boss is not going to test you on your memory, nobody is going to test you on that. It's how resourceful you are to get a problem resolved.
Right.
And it's just that, So I think this pandemic has prepared and really forced us, especially in assessment time, has really forced us and to offer something that is more realistic where exam is concerned. Yeah, and it's compatible to what the future holds for the younger generation.
Okay, my last question to you, Jimmy. Can you share with us some good tips for students who are still struggling with this new normal in learning? I mean, they're still not able to get used to this new normal environment. What do you think?
I'm not sure whether they struggle more than the educators, but I can tell you that the struggle perhaps is more with the teaching staff, because I've had people's friends, from computer illiterate and becomes competent, just because they have to learn all this. So I really don't think the struggle, but I can think of maybe just these two things. Number one is expectations. The first thing that my advice to students is to adjust your expectations. Be realistic. The person who sit in front of you delivering the lectures, they are not YouTuber. You just have to be realistic. They are not YouTuber. And therefore, okay, the quality is not of YouTube standard. Otherwise, they would, have their own channels and run their own YouTube. That would probably earn them more. Right. So that is the truth. They are not YouTuber. They are not well versed in video editing. Okay, so you have to understand this. It's just like me getting a YouTuber to deliver a lecture on the spot, on a technical topic. Most YouTubers can't do that because they rely a lot of editing. Okay, so you have to be realistic. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, it's about time management. I really don't think it's going to be so much different learning when the person is sitting in front of you in a room than sit in front of you in the screen. If you can make friends, on a platform where you don't touch them and you can still chit chat, I don't see why you can't learn from a person where you can't touch them. Okay, so I think the biggest challenge where students are having it usually in this period of time is with time management, and especially with this gadget called mobile phone. I personally, I'm not into Facebook. I am into a bit of YouTube, but I'm not into Facebook. But when I have my Facebook account installed on my mobile phone, I noticed that I spend easily on average about 2 to 3 hours a day, and it's usually at night. And it's just before I go to bed.
Yeah.
When you finish everything, you're like, oh yeah, maybe it's time to pamper yourself a little bit. Maybe 15 minutes of streaming won't do any harm on you. But me as a person, as an adult, having to work the next day, I noticed that I usually spend about 2 to 3 hours, started off with a 5-10 minutes, it ended up to 2-3 hours. So that's about 10% of your lifetime. And that is with consciously spending times in the evening. Now, if you're not careful about, you may end up spending 20-30%, if not more. Okay? If you don't plan, if you don't, restrict yourself, you could spend a lot more time on social media. So the problem is not so much about learning from a person or online learning. So, the problem is about how do you manage your time. It's the same gadgets. While learning, you have your message pop up. What do? Do you leave it aside? Do you ignore it, or do you check it immediately? This instant gratification, we need to find things out. We need to find out what is it about and things like that. So I think it has a lot to do with time management.
Great. Yeah. You very chirpy and wordy mood today, Dr. Jimmy. I couldn't interrupt anywhere. Anyway, well said. Thank you, Dr. Jimmy Chia. Thank you. It says most people generally look at the new year as fresh beginning, as a kind of opportunity to start over, to overcome a habit, or do a better job of something they see important and needs improvement. Or it may be developing different priorities, using our time better, or a whole lot of things that people would like to change. In government, the responsibility of keeping the nation healthy, developing it and providing for the well-being of slightly over 30 million people is a daunting task. Malaysia, its institutions, both in the private and public sectors, and all rakyat must not pretend that all will be well in the new normal. History tells us that outbreaks of infectious diseases have often served as catalysts for overdue changes in behavioral issues, and this, we say, is the right time for these changes. Let us pray and hope for the best in the new normal environment. Once again, Dr. Jimmy Chia, thank you for sharing with us your thoughts and views on this subject matter. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Edu Channel Malaysia. Until we meet again, take care and stay safe, everyone. God the Almighty jaga kita. Bye. See you.